Nicky Chan is able to extend this stint longer than anybody else.
Wow, unbelievable stuff here. What fuel setting are they running?
They've got to have that engine turned down. Either that or they are doing some of the best lifting and coasting I have ever seen in my life.
Hello everybody, welcome to Last 10th. If you've been following Porsche Club of America's Sim League, you'll know that last week I won my first podium in the Pro Class. So how was I, a Pro Class rookie, able to finish in front of a field of faster drivers? Because of fuel saving. In this video, I'm going to share with you my secrets step by step on when you should save fuel, how you can save fuel, and some pro tips at the end. So without further ado, let's go save some fuel. So, to save fuel, you will need to use less fuel. If you use less fuel, you will go slower, which means your lap times will be longer. If the total time cost of saving fuel is less than the amount of time it takes you to refuel the car, it's worth saving fuel. How much fuel do you need to save? Let me show you. I will use my race at Winton, where I got my podium, as an example. It was a 40-minute race with a fuel limit of 48 liters. In the full send strategy, it took about 80 seconds to complete a lap. To complete the race, it would require a pit stop that would cost me 25.1 seconds to refuel 6 liters. In this strategy, when the timer hits 0, I would have completed 29.7 laps and finished the race on the 30th lap. Now, with your fuel save strategy, you want to complete as many laps as you did with your normal full send strategy. That means you need to complete 30 laps with 48 liters of fuel, meaning you have 1.6 liters of fuel to spend per lap. Not pitting means you would have saved the 25.1 seconds over 30 laps, which means 0.8 seconds per lap. In other words, for fuel saving strategy to work, your fuel saving lap times must not be more than 0.8 seconds than your normal full send lap times. So in total, each fuel save lap must not be more than 80.8 seconds. And during my testing, I found that I can complete a fuel saving lap using 1.6 liters, costing me no more than 0.4 to 0.5 seconds. If a fuel save break even is 0.8 seconds, and I'm only using 0.5 seconds, I'm saving 0.3 seconds per lap. Now, over 30 laps, that's a 9-second advantage. After you've calculated whether a fuel-saving strategy is beneficial, there are a few things you need to consider. The first one is track configuration. If a track is particularly difficult to pass on, such as Winton, a no-pit strategy may be favorable. The easiest pass you can ever make is passing a car that is in the pits. Don't forget you will need some extra fuel for your formation laps and your standing starts. Also, the engine cuts off before the fuel level goes to 0. So make sure you leave a bit of buffer in your calculations. Another thing you need to think about is pit in and out laps. In my experience, pit in and out laps tend to use more fuel. This is because the car is in motion for a longer period of time during which it is burning fuel. So don't forget to factor this into your calculations. Next thing you need to think about is emergency pits. If you need to pit for whatever reason, such as repairs, it is going to wipe out any benefit that you've had from saving fuel thus far. If that ever happens, your best chance is to salvage what you have and to refuel the car and run the remainder of the race as fast as you can. Similarly, if you have body or suspension damage, it is going to create more drag or scrub, which is going to result in higher fuel consumption. Generally, if you receive any draft during the race, it's going to help you reduce fuel usage. And this is going to help you reduce the amount of fuel that you need to save. So now we know when we need to save fuel, but how do we do it? One method of saving fuel is changing your fuel map. Using a lower fuel map will make your engine burn less fuel, but use that fuel more efficiently. So in other words, you're going to get more acceleration per unit of fuel burnt. Now the downside of this is that it saves fuel indiscriminately throughout the lap. It saves fuel everywhere, even when it's not the best place to save fuel. Another method to save fuel is lifting and coasting. This is what I use to achieve 99% of my fuel savings. What you need to do is lift off the throttle before your normal brake point and let the car coast until after your normal brake point before you start applying your brakes. Hence, lifting and coasting. The reason to do this is simple. Fuel is best spent in the beginning of the straight and best saved at the end of the straight. And here's why. At the beginning of a straight, you're going to be in a lower gear, which means you're going to get more acceleration. You're also at a lower speed, which means there will be less drag, and again, it'll be easier to accelerate. And when you're at the beginning of the straight, any speed that you gain will benefit you down the entire straight. On the other hand, at the end of the straight, your speeds will be much higher, meaning you'll be in a higher gear with lower acceleration and much more drag. So taken together, it's going to cost you a lot more fuel to accelerate just that little bit. And to make matters worse, any acceleration that you gained at the end of the straight will only benefit you until you reach the brake zone, which is a very short period of time. So here's an example of how I lift and coast into turn 3 at Winton. On the left, you will see my normal pace, and I will play it through once so you can see what happens. As you see, I'm going down the straight at full throttle, and I use the 50 board on the left as my brake marker. A car length before the marker, I brake and then turn in. On the right, you will see me lift and coast. Again, you see me going down the straight at full throttle, but this time, about 64 meters before the brake marker, I lift off the throttle. I coast 19 meters past my normal brake point before I start to brake and turn in. In this particular case, fuel saving cost me 0.15 seconds and saved me 0.05 liters. Now, there are also a couple of pro tips that I want to give you to help you fuel save. The first one is stay in low gear. This is partly the reason why short shifting doesn't actually work when you're trying to fuel save. So let's look at the 992 Cup car in iRacing as an example. If we look at how much fuel the engine burns, it actually peaks at around 7,500 RPM. However, beyond that, the engine power output continues to increase. In other words, in the highest RPM range of the engine, it actually produces more power while burning less fuel, which means you're getting more efficiency out of your fuel. And that's good for fuel saving. So if you shift early, you might not actually be saving any fuel, but you'll definitely have less acceleration. So from this, we can see energy efficiency increases as the RPMs increase. In other words, the car generates more acceleration per amount of fuel in the higher RPMs. So by short shifting, you're avoiding the most power efficient part of the power band, and that's not going to help you save fuel. My second pro tip is avoid partial throttle. To achieve best fuel efficiency, you want the maximum amount of acceleration a unit of fuel can produce. So if we look at the iRacing 992 Cup car as an example, at full throttle, the engine produces the most power efficiency. So you want to keep it at full throttle as much as possible. On top of that, engine power does not equate acceleration. And here's why. Regardless of your throttle position, there are decelerative forces, such as drag, scrub, and rolling resistance. So let's take maintenance throttle, for example. You're applying throttle and you're burning fuel, but you're not accelerating at all. Or worse, when you're below maintenance throttle, you're actually burning fuel and decelerating. So I hope you enjoyed learning about fuel saving and you're excited to try some of this out. These are my secrets on fuel strategy, and it is exactly how I ran as much as 5 more laps on the same tank of gas without losing any positions in a recent endurance race. Study this video, practice the techniques. When the time comes, you will surprise your competitors by doing something that they thought could not be done. So that's all I have for today. This time, don't send it, save fuel, and I'll see you next time. To achieve the best fuel efficiency, you want the maximum amount of acceleration a